I'm Mark Phillips here. Welcome to the Video Wine Blog. This is the second show in the three-part series on understanding wine. The first one was on categorizing wine. This is on the body of wine. It's really key to understand the body of wine. It's key to describe wine, mainly that's it, and to understand that so you can buy wine that you like and that you can choose a wine to match with food. It all revolves around the body of wine. Now, this is what drives me nuts, because I think the body of wine is the one of many topics, I guess, that I think that wine educators usually do a terrible job of explaining about. Because there's a classic analogy that most of them use to describe the body of wine, and that's milk. I don't like the analogy. They use it because they learned it from their wine teacher, who learned it from their wine teacher. All these analogies for wine educators are all passed down for generations, and no one ever just stopped and thought, does this make any sense at all? No, they just are like sheep, and they keep using the same analogies over and over again. It makes no sense. So you'll see in most either classes or in wine books, when they talk about the body of wine, they'll use the milk analogy. When they use that, they're wrong, in my opinion. So here's the milk analogy. A light-bodied wine is like skim milk. You know, it's kind of thin and watery. A medium-bodied wine is like whole milk. A little thicker, more mouthfeel, and a full-bodied wine is like heavy cream. Clearly, people know the difference between those three. The milk feels different in your mouth. The cream is thicker, the skim milk is thinner. Okay. That doesn't really translate to wine, though. Light-bodied wines aren't always thinner. It doesn't work that way. And the mouthfeel of wine is not like the mouthfeel of milk, where the liquid's actually thicker than, you know, a full-bodied wine. The wine's not thicker than a light-bodied wine. So the analogy just doesn't cut it. But no wine educator that I've ever met has ever not used that one. So I developed my own that I think makes more sense. And the problem with the milk analogy, even if you agreed somehow that the mouthfeel of wine is the same as the mouthfeel of milk, it doesn't give you any practical information about how to buy wine. How do you use that milk analogy to look at a bottle on the shelf and know if that wine is a light, medium, or full-bodied wine? You don't. So any information I give you, I wanted to have some kind of pragmatic application. And so my way of describing the body of wine is by one word, an acronym, OAT, O-A-T. And each one of those letters, being an acronym, stands for one factor that contributes to a wine body. The O stands for oak. Chardonnay is a classic wine that uses oak, and most red wines do. But in Chardonnay, if you get Chardonnay with no oak, because you'll see Chardonnays, you know, no oak Chardonnay, virgin Chardonnay, they call it all different kinds of things. Try Chardonnay without any oak, that is not put in oak barrels at all. And then the Chardonnay with oak, the Chardonnay with oak is more full-bodied because of the oak influence. So oak contributes to a wine's body. The less oak that's used, the lighter body of the wine, the more oak, more body. In fact, these wines that are used new oak, new French oak, new American oak, wow, those wines got a lot more to them because of the oak. Neither one's bad or good, less oak or more oak, if it's, you know, out of control, but that's a personal preference, so that's not for me to say. But I will say that wines with more oak have more body to them. Second one is A for alcohol, which is the most important of the three. Alcohol is the number one contributing factor to a wine's body. The more alcohol in the wine, the more body it has. So that's easy to remember. Alcohol, body. These wines that are 14, 15, 16, 17% alcohol. You know, they're big, crazy wines. big, full-bodied wines, these high alcohol Zinfandels especially, from California and stuff, whatever, Cabernets too, wherever they're from. But the alcohol is a huge contributor to that. And the last one's tannin. So tannin's not in white wines very often, maybe a little bit from oak barrels that are used, but tannin's usually a red wine thing. And a red wine with more tannin has more body to it. Cabernet, Zinfandel, Shiraz are often wines where that are pretty high in tannin. Pinot Noir is a red wine where the tannin isn't very high because the skins are really thin in a Pinot Noir grape, and tannin comes from the skins. So Pinot Noir doesn't usually have a lot of tannin. It can still in certain situations, but I'm just generalizing. So now you have three things that contribute to a wine's body, alcohol being the number one factor there. But you can know all that from the wine before you even buy it, typically. Because on the label, of course, it says the alcohol percentage, and because that's the most important, that's your big indicator of the body of that wine. But turn that bottle around and read that back label, and usually most back labels describe the character of the wine, and it'll say if it's been put in oak barrels. That's usually on there somewhere if it's on the back label. And it usually will say, if it describes the wine at all, if it's got any tannin to it on that back label. If it grips your mouth, if it's chewy, tannin, grip, all those are kind of synonyms. Well, chewy and grip is a synonym for tannin. So you can find out if that wine's got that. But some bottles don't have that in the back. But you don't care, because if the alcohol's pretty high, that's a better indicator, really, of the body of the wine. So low-bodied or light-bodied wine should be 12% and under. Medium-bodied, 12 to 14. 12 to 14. Can you believe I'm saying that? 14% alcohol years ago was huge. You never see a wine at 14% alcohol. Now it's nothing. We spit at 14% alcohol. 14% alcohol could still be considered a medium-bodied wine in a lot of cases. That's nuts. But that's how it is. It's changed. And then 14 and above would be a full-bodied wine. I could say 13.5 would be the cutoff, but I'm going to go with 14. But it gives you a guideline of what to look for if you want the body of wine. So the body of wine is huge in choosing food. A lot of wine educators would say you want a medium-bodied wine with medium-bodied food. If the food's really powerful, like big, rich stews and truffles and stuff, then you want a full-bodied wine. If you have a really light, and they always use the example of Dover Sole. If you're having Dover Sole, then you want a light-bodied wine, and so on. So, there's something to that. I'm not a big fan of that wine and food matching stratagem, if that's even the right word. But it's out there. But the body of wine still is what kind of wines you like. Do you like light, medium, or full-bodied wines? It helps you guide on which wines you want to buy. So anyway, that's your little information on body. OAT, oak, alcohol, and tannin, with alcohol being the most important, determines a wine's body. All right, that's all. See ya. Bye-bye.